never thought I would say any of this out loud. My name is Elise. I'm 44 years old. I've been a single mother most of my adult life, and my son, Lenny, is 22 now. For years, it was just the two of us. Bills, birthdays, broken appliances, late-night talks, every high and low we faced together. We weren't just mother and son. We were a team. And then one cold night in our small house, something happened that I can't unfeel. Before I unfold the rest of this night, take a second to hit like and subscribe. It really does help more than you know, and if you're drawn into stories like this, I want you here for every one of them. Also tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Are you in a small town where the evenings fall slow and gentle, or in a city where the lights never quite go dark? Nothing happened in the way people tend to assume. No lines were physically crossed. But if you're thinking that makes this story neat, simple, or harmless, it doesn't. Because some moments don't require actions to leave scars. Just feelings, just proximity. Just 1 second where everything shifts and you realize the ground under your feet is not where you thought you were standing. It started on a quiet evening. Lenny had been pushing himself too hard. Studying, working shifts, barely sleeping. That day he looked more drained than I'd seen him in a long time. "Mom, I don't feel great," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. It was freezing outside. The windows hummed with the kind of cold that sneaks into your bones. Inside, the house felt heavy. Still. "If you want to lie down in my room for a bit, go ahead," I told him. "It's warmer in there." He nodded gratefully and disappeared down the hall. Later, when I walked into my bedroom, he was already under the thick blanket, curled toward the wall. He looked small suddenly, even at 22. Like the boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. "Still cold?" I asked. He nodded without opening his eyes. I slipped under the covers beside him, still fully dressed in a soft sweater and leggings. It felt normal, like a mom comforting her sick son. I pulled the blanket up around us, tucked it under his chin, and listened as his breathing slowed. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heart. His body was warm against my back, and for a while, it was just that warmth. Familiar, steady. Then he moved closer. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe he was just trying to get comfortable. His arm slid around my waist and pulled me gently toward him, like he used to when he was younger and afraid of bad dreams. It surprised me, but I didn't push him away. Just tired, I told myself. He just needs comfort. That's all. His chest rose and fell against me. His breathing found a slower rhythm, and I lay there staring into the dim room, telling myself not to read into anything. Minutes passed. I felt his arm tighten slightly around me. I went completely still. There was a tension in the air, now I couldn't explain. Not sharp, not obvious, just there. Pressed between us. I told myself to say something, to move, to shift, to set a boundary. I didn't. Then I felt it. Something hard, undeniable under the blanket. My heart lurched into my throat. I tried to stay calm, to will my own mind into a maternal place. He's your son. He's just his body doing what bodies do. It doesn't mean anything. I tried to ignore the shock of it, and worse, the feelings beginning to stir in me, uninvited. I lay there, frozen, letting minutes crawl by, hoping the moment would pass, hoping I wouldn't make it worse. But I also knew deep down that nothing between us would feel quite the same again. At some point, he shifted and lifted his head just enough to look at me. His eyes were softer than I'd ever seen, not the boy I'd raised, not the toddler clutching my leg. Someone older, someone unsure, someone asking a question without using words. He didn't say anything, but his expression seemed to ask, "Are we okay?" I forced a small smile to reassure him, but instead of easing the air, it made the silence feel fuller. His hand stayed resting on my arm. His fingers moved absently, gentle, almost soothing. It was such a small thing, a touch I might not have noticed in another context. But in the moment, every tiny movement felt magnified. My thoughts were loud. This is your son. This is just comfort. Why does your heart feel like it's trying to escape your chest? I kept breathing slowly, afraid he'd feel the tremor in it. He closed his eyes again, his hand tracing slowly down my forearm. A shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold. His eyes opened and met mine. The room held its breath. He whispered, "A mom," barely a word, barely a sound. My mind screamed, "Move, say something, break this." My body didn't. There we were. Mother, son, too close, too quiet. And for a handful of seconds, the storm inside me was louder than any label the world could put on us. Then he pulled back, just slightly, like he'd woken up out of a trance. He looked away, cheeks flushed, let out a shaky laugh and rubbed the back of his neck, the way he always did when he was nervous. Reality slammed back into place. I took a slow breath I hadn't known I was holding. "Ooh, sorry, Mom," he muttered, voice full of embarrassment. I didn't mean to make things weird. He couldn't look at me. I wanted to tell him it was nothing, that we were fine, that it didn't change anything. The words wouldn't come, because it had changed something. At least for me. I'd never felt more uncomfortable in my own skin with my own child, and that terrified me. I put a hand on his shoulder anyway, on instinct. "It's okay, Lenny," I said quietly, forcing steadiness into my voice. "We've just been alone together a long time. We're used to this," Idela said. "It's just a little strange right now, that's all." His eyes flicked up to mine, searching, trying to decide if he could believe me. He nodded. Some of the tightness in his expression loosened. Right as the room began to feel less suffocating, the doorbell rang. The sound sliced through the fragile calm we'd just started to rebuild. I got up too quickly, heart pounding, my senses still scrambled from the closeness. When I opened the front door, our neighbor, Mark, was standing there. He smiled the easy smile I'd come to expect. The kind of smile that says, "I'm safe, I'm familiar, I don't complicate anything." "Hey, Elise," he said. "Just wanted to check in. It's been getting colder. If your heater acts up, I can help take a look." For a brief, grounding moment, his kindness felt like a lifeline. "Thanks, Mark," I said, really smiling this time. "We do get chilly at night. I'd appreciate that." He stepped inside, walked through to check a few vents, made small talk. "How's work?" "How's work?" "How's Lenny handling the job search?" His voice was light, his presence steady. Meanwhile, I could feel Lenny watching us from the hallway. The weight of his stare pressed into my back. When I glanced toward him, his face was unreadable. Behind the mask, I thought, just for an instant, I saw something that looked a lot like jealousy. It rattled me. The tension in the room had changed. Subtle. Real. When Mark finished and headed for the door, he paused. "Everything okay here, Elise?" he asked, eyes narrowing just slightly. "You seemed a little off earlier." I swallowed. "We're fine," I said. "Just a quiet night." He held my gaze for a second longer than usual, then gave Lenny a nod and stepped outside. The door shut. The house went quiet again. Except nothing inside of it was really quiet anymore. When I turned around, Lenny was standing in the hallway, arms crossed, shoulders tense. "You okay?" I asked gently. He shrugged. "Yeah, just didn't expect him to show up," he said. His tone was flat. Too flat. Lenny, I started. But he'd already walked past me, his door closed with a soft click that somehow echoed louder than any slam. I stood there, staring at the wood grain, feeling a heavy, wordless loss settle in my chest. Not the loss of something that had happened, the loss of clarity, of certainty about where we stood, of who we were to each other after that bed, that blanket, that heartbeat. Later, in my room, I sank onto the edge of my bed and let my thoughts race in circles I didn't know how to stop. I knew one thing. We couldn't leave it like this. We couldn't pretend that strange closeness never happened, or that it hadn't stirred up something confusing and too big for both of us. At some point, there was a soft knock at my door. "Come in," I called, trying to sound composed. Lenny stepped in, hands shoved into his pockets, expression carefully blank. He sat down beside me, the mattress dipping like it had under that blanket. For a while, we didn't speak. The air between us felt thick, like our unspoken thoughts had taken up all the available oxygen. Finally, he whispered, "Oh, Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I didn't mean to make things weird." His voice cracked on the last word. I placed my hand over his, letting it rest there. "It's okay," I said quietly. We're both a little lost. We've been just us for a long time. Sometimes that makes things complicated. He nodded slowly, staring at his own hands like they were strangers. "I don't know what to do with all these feelings," he admitted, the words so soft I almost missed them. "I don't want to make things harder. I don't know how to just turn it off. Just turn it off." The vulnerability in his face broke something in me again, but in a different way this time. Because it reminded me, he's not just my confusion. He's my child. My first job isn't to satisfy what I feel. It's to protect him from what he's feeling and doesn't know how to handle. Every instinct screamed at me to pull him in, cradle his head to my chest, tell him we'd be okay. I almost did. Then I stopped myself, because comfort in that moment could easily become something else neither of us would know how to live with. So I stayed very still. "Lenny," I said gently. Maybe. We both just need to step back for a bit. Think about what's going on. It's normal to feel close after everything we've been through. It's not wrong to need comfort, but we also have to be really, really careful about where those feelings go." He nodded, swallowing hard. Then for just a moment, he rested his head on my shoulder the way he had when he was small. I froze. Then slowly, I let my arm wrap around him, not tightly, just enough to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." We sat like that, pressed together, but also holding a deliberate line. Calm washed over us just for a minute, not because anything was fixed, because we'd finally stopped pretending nothing was wrong. Eventually, he pulled back and looked at me again. "I really don't want to hurt you," he said. "Or us, or make things weird forever." I smiled sadly. "You're allowed to feel what we feel," I said. "That's human. But what we do with those feelings, that's what defines us." Before we could go any further, there was another knock at the front door. It jolted us both. When I opened it, there was Mark again. Concern all over his face. Sorry," he said. "I just had a feeling maybe something was off. Wanted to be sure you were okay." I glanced back at Lenny, who stood in the hallway, arms at his sides now instead of crossed. "We're fine. Just figuring some things out." Mark studied me, then nodded slowly. "Okay. Just remember, I'm right next door," he said. "If you ever need a friend. Or a break." His words landed heavier than he probably meant them to. He left. I closed the door. Turned back to see Lenny watching me. He took a few steps forward, then stopped, squeezing the bridge of his nose like he was holding back something. "And maybe we shouldn't push this, Mom," he said, voice trembling just a little. "And maybe we both need time." Relief and sadness crashed into each other in my chest. "I think you're right," I said quietly. "We can't rush through this. We owe it to ourselves, and to what we've been to each other to think this through properly." He nodded. We stood there in the foyer, close but not touching. It felt like both an ending and a beginning. Not of some taboo romance, of a new era where we'd have to be honest about what loneliness had done to us, and who we didn't want to become because of it. Lenny squeezed my hand once. "Good night, Mom," he said. It was such a simple thing. But there was a new kind of care in it. A line, acknowledged instead of ignored. He went to his room. I went to mine. We both lay awake, I'm sure, thinking of the same things. Not what might have been, what we'd chosen not to let happen. I won't pretend everything went back to normal the next day. It didn't. There were awkward silences, careful distances, moments when one of us would leave a room just because the air got too tight. But slowly, with time, the atmosphere settled into something calmer, not naive, not numb, wise, protective. We spoke eventually around it, about how it feels to be lonely under the same roof, about the way roles blur when you've only ever had each other, about setting boundaries not because you don't love each other, but precisely because you do. Moved out with a friend, got busier with his own life, started dating someone, a sweet, funny girl who made him blush in ways that told me his heart was moving in the right direction. And me. I started rebuilding too, not with a man, with myself, with hobbies I'd dropped. Two, with neighbors I'd kept at a distance, with a therapist eventually who helped me untangle the knotted threads of grief, motherhood, and desire that had all twisted together that night under the blanket. I still love my son. Deeply, fiercely, but now that love has guardrails, rails I chose. On purpose, because I learned the hard way that you can be a good mother and still feel things that terrify you. What makes you stay good is what you do next. If you've listened this far, and some uneasy part of you recognized yourself, not in the details, but in the loneliness, in the confusion, in the dangerous comfort of blurry lines, please hear this. You are not a monster for needing closeness. You are not evil for almost stepping onto a path you knew was wrong. What matters is where you stopped. What matters is what you choose now. If you're sitting with feelings you don't know what to do with, reach out to someone safe. A counselor, a trusted friend, someone who doesn't stand on that same emotional edge with you. You don't have to figure it out alone. And if my story found you in a quiet place of your own, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. Not because anyone is perfect here, but because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is tell the truth about the mess inside us and choose as best we can not to pass that damage on. Emily, and I'm still learning what love looks like when it's honest, messy, and stays on the right side of the line.